A common request I see in the Terraria community is that Relogic should give the players an infinite world option, kinda like Minecraft. A system where you can explore as far as you please, with the game constantly generating new terrain as you move from the left or the right. But is this actually a good idea, and could it even be implemented in the first place? I think there are good arguments on both sides for whether or not this would be a good option, but I think we should start by talking about the potential benefits. An infinite world in Terraria would mean that both the Corruption and Crimson could exist in the same world, making it easier for players to 100% the game. This would also make it easier to collect items from either biome. You could go into the Corruption and fight the Eater of Worlds for the Worm Scarf, and then go to the Crimson to obtain the Brain of Confusion. Obviously, you can technically have both world evils in Terraria's world already, but having an infinite world with both biomes built in would be very convenient. Biome spread in general would no longer be a huge problem. Say you have a jungle biome and it gets corrupted. In current Terraria, you would need to contaminate the entire area to make progress, while in an infinite world you could just go to a different jungle. Another huge benefit would be infinite building resources and therefore way more opportunities. This doesn't matter as much for people like me who already suck at building and don't really care, but for more creative and dedicated players it would be great. You would no longer have to worry about replanting acorns if you need more trees, or having a set amount of dungeon bricks to use. Resources in general would be way easier to collect, not just for building. With an infinite hell biome, for example, you'd be able to collect far more items from shadow chests, which a lot of players would really like. These are the biggest arguments that I've seen in favor of infinite worlds for Terraria, so I think now it's fair to start talking about the problems that would come out of this. And spoiler, there are a lot of problems. First of all, how would you even purify your world? If the world is completely infinite, there would need to be an endless supply of world evil biomes, making it impossible to actually cleanse the world as a whole. This isn't a huge deal, of course, but finally purifying your world in Terraria is a great accomplishment, and infinite worlds would straight up just get rid of that. How would the dungeon even work? There would need to be more than one of these in an infinite world, of course, but part of what makes the dungeon so important and cool in the first place is that there's only one per world. The same thing goes for the jungle temple and the shimmer. I really can't think of a good compromise that would make these areas just as valuable in an infinite world where there are a bunch of dungeons and jungle temples and shimmers. Another huge problem would of course be the celestial pillars. Where would they spawn? They can't just spawn randomly across a nearly infinite world, because that would make tracking them down an absolute nightmare, but it would also be an issue if they all spawn near the center of the map, because a lot of players will probably set up a base far beyond their spawn point by the end of the game, and so getting back to the original spawn would just be annoying. The Wall of Flesh battle would also become a lot less interesting. With an infinite world and therefore an infinite underworld biome, the challenge of beating the Wall of Flesh before reaching the end of the world is completely gone. And one of the biggest reasons this boss fight is so cool in the first place is that added layer of difficulty. The biggest issue is ultimately that infinite worlds would not work with the current world generation we have in Terraria. In Terraria right now, the entire world is generated by the time you press play. The world isn't made as you explore, it's all created beforehand. That's why you have to wait a little bit after you create a world to actually play it. It's generating everything. This system obviously wouldn't work with infinite worlds though. If Terraria tried to generate millions of structures and biomes before you even entered it, you would be stuck in the world creation menu forever. The only way to fix this would be to fundamentally change the way worlds generate in Terraria so that the world gets created as you explore new areas, but that is not possible. That's not gonna happen. Terraria's game engine is bad. Straight up, it's just not good. Terraria still uses Microsoft's XNA Game Studio, which was okay at the time, but it's been discontinued since 2014. Terraria is basically powered by a hamster spinning on a wheel. The way I see it, there is no universe where Terraria, with its current engine, could properly implement infinite world generation. It's not feasible. Ultimately, I think that infinite worlds in Terraria would have more problems than benefits. Having infinite resources would be very cool, and it would be a good novelty for something like multiplayer, but ultimately I don't think it's worth it. If you have any differing opinions on the stuff that I said in this video, then make sure to leave a comment, because I'm always open to discussion and I would love to see what you think. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.